We have a very special guest. He's a former Chargers quarterback who wasn't too fond of the media back then, but now he's one of us. He's a college football analyst for ESPN and an NFL analyst for Sirius XM. A very warm welcome to Ryan Leaf. Ryan, you have a podcast out that's called Bust. You share your story and you tell us everything that went down with the Chargers and how you got to where you are today. What made you do this podcast?
Well, it's kind of part of what my life has become, right? In terms of telling my story to help others. And when I broached the subject with my producer, Kevin Connolly, I don't know if you guys were Entourage fans, but Kevin played the character E in that show and is incredibly talented behind the scenes, behind the camera, producing and stuff. And we kind of brainstormed an idea. We've never heard really a podcast where somebody simply just steps in front of the mic herself, and tells the honest to God truth, and in story form. And we thought people would gravitate towards it. And so we started out and we recorded about, 18 hours of what I essentially do when I travel around the country and I speak. But we did it in a more kind of uncensored and raw format. And it's been incredibly well received. We released the 4th episode today. We have about 6 or 7 more episodes to release over the next few weeks. And we hope that we're helping people who need it, to hear something to relate to find a solution. It's people consider it a sports podcast, but I don't. I consider it a completely mental health and recovery based podcast.
Yeah, Ryan, I love all the behind the stories that we got, and we kind of remember the kind of the blow-ups in the locker room, but we never knew what kind of led up to the why were you in that mood or what happened, and you kind of gave us the nuggets of behind the scene, the full context of everything that went down. But go ahead, Ryan.
I don't know. I think I was just in that mood all the time back then, so it really didn't matter, I guess. Poor Jay Posner was the guy that had to take the brunt of it.
Yeah, we all remember very well, but not just that, like the way you kind of were raised in Montana, your kind of your attitude there where you were the shy kid, but you were viewed as a jock. So it was kind of this weird persona you were trying to figure out too. And I love the story about you partying with Warren Sapp and The Rock on your visit to Miami and how that turned out. But overall, it was just some great stories that we didn't know about before. But, first of all, congrats on being sober for the last 7 years and turning your life around and kind of also sharing that, like you mentioned, in terms of mental health for other people to kind of say, hey, I'm kind of going through that in a way too, to see what Ryan has done. I could relate to that. So that's a very, very cool part. But Ryan, I guess for what I want to ask you, the way you started the podcast, you were saying that you're looking at the Rocky Mountains from prison, and that kind of gave you a whole new perspective. Is that kind of the point where you felt like I got to really make a real serious change right here?
No, in that moment, I just felt sorry for myself, right? I'm like, how did I get here? Poor me. I was never anybody that looked at something like, oh, it's time to get this fixed. It was more like, you need to fix it. You're the problem. I'm not the problem. And so it took me a while. It took me to a place in prison where I finally started helping other people. And in a place where you don't see people doing that, it makes it a lot easier to be that version of yourself when you walk out of that prison cell, because it's transformational and you understand that you have to be 180 degrees different than who you were in the past, or nothing's going to change. I was going to be exactly the same person I'd always been. And that was ultimately going to end me right back in prison or most likely dead.
Wow. Yeah, Ryan, it's kind of a weird path you've taken and ups and downs. And, another thing I really liked about your podcast was just kind of showing how, I guess, the side of how athletic you were. You were saying you're a basketball star. You had all the physical tools. It came to a point in time where there was a real debate about you being the number one overall pick over Peyton Manning because you had the stronger arm. You were more athletic. So it kind of got me thinking when you kind of compare yourself back then to watching some of the guys now today, the quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. Like, are we talking arm strength like that?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand how strong my arm was until I was coaching a youngster a few years later in Texas, and I thought he was great. I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I told this scout, I said, he has a stronger arm than I did. And the scout looked at me and said, Ryan, no, he doesn't. And so he scouted me. He saw the process. And I think I was beat over the head so much in my life after my NFL career, where people told me what a terrible quarterback I was, how poor I was, that I just believed it. I forgot that there was any God-given talent and how I worked at it and got to that place. So it's been really interesting digging it all back up and kind of talking about it, seeing some highlights, things like that of my playing career. I have yet to be back to a Chargers game. I'm going this weekend for the first time with my family. My little 4-year-old son's already got his Justin Herbert jersey all picked out. I'm excited for that. I always felt really lost because every other NFL player who gets drafted or plays in the league, regardless if they play a season, a game, or whatever, when the Legends weekends happen and the alumni come back to be a part of something, I didn't have that, and I felt a void there. And the relationship that I've helped reconstruct with the Spanos family and the Chargers, I got invited to their Legends weekend this weekend. So I'm looking forward to it. I have no delusions that I'll probably get booed. That's just the way it goes. But I want to feel something, and I have my son, and I want him to be a part of something like this for our future together, and be able to go back to and celebrate something that was my dream that I realized.
Yeah, for obviously you mentioned Justin Herbert. Fresh off of this weekend, a lot of America got to see two of the top quarterbacks of the 2020 draft get to go head to head. What did you make of the matchup between Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert?
I thought it was incredible. I think both of these teams have a bit of Jekyll and Hyde in them, where you don't quite know who you're going to get every single week. Justin Herbert has struggled a bit against some elite defensive schemes. If you look back at the coaches he's been up against this season, that's where he seemed to have struggled. And he's been incredible on the road. You got to look at his road record and how well he's done when traveling all the way across the country, at Philly, at Cincy this last week. I'm really proud of what the youngster has been able to do. I don't think a lot of people had the same impression of him coming out of college as I did. I thought he was if not the number one guy, he was at least the equivalent of Joe Burrow. And I've really enjoyed seeing him excel and become the franchise's face at the quarterback position in Los Angeles.
Obviously, Ryan, switching out of college football, there's been a lot of madness in college football over the last few weeks. Lincoln Riley goes to USC. Brian Kelly goes to LSU. Cristobal goes to Miami. What do you kind of make of this coaching carousel that has been going on for the last couple of weeks?
Well, the carousel happens every year, regardless. Now, the timing of it all has been undue consequences to the NCAA moving the National Signing Day, where they've moved it up to the second week of December. They've really put teams in a pickle because you cannot go into the signing period with your recruiting class without a coach, right? If you do, you're most likely going to have a faltered or failed recruiting class, and that can set you back a long time. So I think the unintended consequences of moving that date has made for this carousel to happen. Now, to see the likes of somebody go from Notre Dame to LSU, to see somebody go from Oklahoma to USC, and then a coach from Oregon to go to Miami, that is unfounded, right? To see somebody make what a lot of people would consider maybe a step down, but the money that is involved in the SEC, the money that's involved at USC, right? All of those things. And the Mario Cristobal one yesterday, that was really all about him going home, right? Going back to where he played, where he won a national title, to a community where his heritage is at, all of that. It was just, I don't think you can fault Mario Cristobal at all for taking this opportunity to go back home.
Yeah, right. And it was good to see Mario test out the Spanish again in his presser earlier today that I caught. But also, Ryan, obviously, NFL very well in college, but I want to go back to what you mentioned with the I guess, talking with the Spanos family again, I guess, how did that start? How did you guys kind of mend fences and start communication again?
I'm trying to see when we ran into each other. Oh, the first time was the commissioner of the NFL invited me to a Chargers Philadelphia game, and I was when it was in Carson still, and I was so nervous about it, and I was afraid to walk anywhere. So it was in a private suite, so I went in there to spend it and see the commissioner, talk to him about the things I was doing to help current and former players, and Mr. Spanos, Dean, came into that suite, and I think he was really surprised to see me. And I never thought I'd have an opportunity to make amends, which is a big part of my recovery, to apologize for my part in that terrible fiasco of me being drafted there and playing so poorly and behaving so poorly. I never thought I'd have that opportunity to be in front of the owner of the Chargers to be able to do that. And I think it surprised him so much he didn't quite know what to say. His response was kind of, it was a long time ago, Ryan. He was very kind, but I think he probably took some time to reflect on it with his family and his wife in particular. And the next time I saw him was on a golf course a couple years later, and we started talking a little bit. And then at the Super Bowl in Miami 2 years ago, him and his wife came up to me. They had watched the documentary that the ESPN had put together, and something had shifted. Something had changed in how they wanted to move forward with me, I think. And so because of COVID, it wasn't available last year, but this year now, the Legends Weekend is this weekend, and I'm excited to take my family to celebrate something that was incredibly important for a little old kid from Montana who never should have ever made it to the NFL.
Wow. So when he invited you to this, you're thinking, yeah, for sure. I know it went bad, when you're with the Chargers, and like you mentioned, you might get booed, but it was a kind of a no-brainer. You're going to go back and it felt right for you.
I just felt it was necessary. And I've really come to the realization by using this affirmation over the last 7 years since coming out of prison, what other people think of me is none of my business. So if that's actually truth, if what other people think of me is none of my business, then it doesn't matter if I'm applauded or if I'm booed. It's for the experience for me and my family to be a part of something special, to celebrate that together, and to show my son and tell my son, this is how you handle things. This is how you go about your business, because I was not a good example for kids who looked up to me when I was with the San Diego Chargers, right? I was not a good example. And now I have to be as a father. That is a very personal issue for me. And this was an opportune time to do that.
It's honestly been amazing what you've done, Ryan. I mean, it's just being able to say I was wrong. A lot of people don't like to admit that they were wrong. They don't want to admit that they failed. And for you to come out and say that's just been incredible to see. And Ryan, last two for me, but what have you seen from this 2021 Chargers this season?
Well, like I said a little earlier, they've been kind of Jekyll and Hyde, right? Just when you think that they're like going to jump the next level and excel, they kind of come back down to earth, right? Against elite schemers on the defensive side of the football, Vic Fangio, Bill Belichick, right? Justin Herbert and the offense has really struggled. Defensively, I think they've come along and gotten better, mainly because they've stayed healthy. The turnovers they were able to create and get in Cincinnati, I think will go a long way for this team to continue. Getting the Giants this weekend at home, I think, is a bit of a get-right game for them, because the Giants have struggled, right? They're most likely going to have a third-string quarterback starting, and that's some good news for this defense. They can attack and let Justin Herbert in that offensive system. I don't think Austin Eckler's ever going to have a game like that again, where he gives it up a few times, having multiple turnovers. That's not in his DNA. So I think that gets corrected, and I think I'm going to be on hand for a very cool football game on Sunday. They've struggled a little bit at home in SoFi for whatever reason. Yeah. It's a new stadium, just everything that goes with it. I think they have to find a comfort level with that place. It is really an entertainment venue. Yeah. It is. I called the Rams Titans game the other night. It was the first time in that stadium, and it's a beautiful venue. But you have to get used to it and make it your home field advantage, and that may just take a little time for this Chargers team.
Ryan, last one for me. What would it mean if Dad was able to get son to meet Justin Herbert?
I think that he's just gonna be impressed by any guy in a helmet. Like if I grab my Chargers helmet and put it on, he'll love that just the same. He likes the fact if we're able to get down on the field, he'll just like the fact that he's on the field for an NFL game. I think that's going to be the bigger thing in all of this.
That's going to be awesome for you guys to. Oh yeah, how old is he?
He's only 4, so I don't know if he'll remember it even. So who knows?
Got to take a lot of.
He knows he likes the jersey. He knows he likes the jersey. So that's the best part in all this, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Ryan, we appreciate you jumping on with us and getting to share more of your story and everything. And we definitely appreciate it. And we hope you have fun this weekend. Hey, some of these legends, they really like to have a lot of fun. Lorenzo Neal, he's been on the show before. He likes to have fun. So be careful for Low Neal. I mean, he's one of the fun guys on one of the funnest legends out there.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.